Emory. We had over 50 minority men in person on site at the Brain Health Center. So if you joined us on site, you had a wonderful time. Thank you for the awesome feedback. Thank you for joining us for that live demonstration with Chef Jarvis Belton, and then you had the opportunity to participate in some physical activity with John Lewis, right? So round of applause, a virtual round of applause, right? A little bit of housekeeping. Remember to use the Q&A or the chat function if you have questions or comments. Dr. Monica Parker is here today. She's our Outreach, Recruitment, and Engagement Corps Director, as well as the Director for our Minority Engagement Corps. So we have been hosting BrainTalk Live, as I mentioned, since March of 2020 because of the pandemic. We haven't been able to fully embrace face-to-face in-person programming like we did pre-pandemic, but we're slowly there's an uptick to our face-to-face programming. As we mentioned, we had a program last Thursday face-to-face, and we're going to have our Brain Health Forum here in October. Dr. Parker, I'm going to turn it over to you quickly before we go back to John. What do they have in store for them for our 23rd Brain Health Forum?
Oh, wow. Well, we've got a couple of things going on for you. You're going to hear from Dr. David Bennett from Chicago, Chicago Rush University. They're talking about aging and the nun study, the religious order study, and what we learned about Alzheimer's and how that can be applicable to the general population. You're going to hear about resilience from the mental health perspective from Dr. Eliza Wingo, who is one of our professors here at Emory. You're also going to learn about how we are looking at the genetic components underlying disease and precision medicine. Dr. Alan Levy has launched what we call the Precision Medicine Institute. So your genetics, your proteins, I wanted to say proteomics because that's one of the things we're working at as well, are something that we're looking at in terms of how we can better and more effectively tailor healthcare interventions and therapeutics to more accurately match the population that's receiving them. So for this means that there may be a different formulation of medications, treatments, et cetera, that needs to be provided for people based on their genetics and what their genetics shows us. So that's where we are moving in all medicine, not just in Alzheimer's, but all medicine, cancer, heart disease, et cetera. So there are things that are unique to every one of us that may be better suited to some gene research. So that's something that Dr. Levy is going to talk to us about. And if we're lucky, we're going to get one of the pharmaceutical industries representatives who are creating and manufacturing the treatments that are being fast forwarded for treating Alzheimer's and related dementias. Further information on that later, but remember last year this time we heard from Dr. Sundrock from Biogen, who talked about the ongoing studies that they were doing by his company and how they were working to help improve cognitive health for all people. So we're going to hear more and more about that, but for the time being, our theme is resilience, and that resilience comes from mental health, improved physical health, cognitive health, and what role our genetics may play in all of that. So we're looking forward to learning more about resilience and how we can improve our resilience not only to neurocognitive disorders, but also to infectious disorders. We are likely going to have an infectious disease expert on sometime just before or just after the forum to talk about where we are with respect to infections and how that affects our resilience and our overall functioning as normal adults. So please pay attention, stay tuned, and you'll get more information. Our forum will be live. It will be hosted by us at the Carter Center Library, October 18th. I think that's the day, 18th. All right. Thank you, Cornelia.
Excellent. So you just heard your very own infomercial for our 23rd Brain Health Forum. It will be hybrid. So if you are not here in Georgia or in the Atlanta area, don't want to travel, We will have a limited number of seats on October 18th, but we will be virtual as well. So back in April, we had about 150 people on site, and then about 500 of you joined us virtually. So you'll have that opportunity again for those that want to come on site. All right, we've done about 5 minutes of housekeeping. What do we begin with every week? We begin with exercise, because what is good for your heart is good for your brain, and we cannot sit here and tell you to get active and get moving without showing you how to do that. So John's going to give us about 8 minutes of physical activity, and then we're going to turn it over to attorney Angel Riley, and she has some awesome information, so much content today and some nuggets for you. So I want you to grab a pen, grab some paper so you can take lots of notes. All right, this is applicable to you regardless of what state. These are tidbits you need to know as an adult. All right, so John, get our hearts going before we turn it over for our content today. Welcome, John.
Hey, I want to say welcome, and I want to congratulate all those men that came out last week. I'm going to say great job and kudos to you. Today, I want to start off a little slow. I want to show you some things you can do with a band at work or at home. You get your band, place it under the chair, or under any kind of chair. If you want to work shoulders, you got to press, good press. If you want to work flies and the delts and the shoulders and upper chest, you have a good fly. If you want to work front of the chest, shoulders, and rear delts, you can go front, you can go angle, you can go side. If you want to work those biceps, put your hands in front and curl. If you want to work triceps, you put that hand behind you, bring this one forward, and press back. All right, now, another exercise you can do is put it behind the chair. Put it behind the chair, slide forward, and make sure it's low, because you don't want it high with it. Pop you in your back now. So you have it low, and if you want to work that outer chest, hands wide, and press, press. If you want to work more of the inner chest, you press and bring it forward and squeeze, squeeze. Now, if you want to drop it and you want to go incline, you go up just a little bit for that upper chest and upper shoulders. If you really want to get on top of them shoulders, you can go forward. You can do so many exercises with a simple band that shows different exercises to keep that body tone at work, at home, or if you're just busy anywhere where you have a chair. Okay, let's get started. So we're going to warm up right quick, and then we're going to go right into it. Here we go. my mind. Let's go. When anyone was feeling let go, breathing my cool. Come on now. Sometimes it feels like success is a trap. And sometimes it feels like people don't understand. Cause the pressure plenty and expectations high. Even your day ones were supposed to get your back, sometimes they was the try. And everybody has an opinion on how you supposed to live your life. And even people were supposed to show you the way that the people they backbite. Not be pride, not be ego. Sometimes I can't stay my mind, sometimes I can't stay behind, sometimes I would love to say no. Sometimes I got to watch out of my head. This person don't go try me to say no. So if you see me outside and I don't greet you, no vex, back on my head, you full of. I'm not where you know the level. Oh, like this one, she like this. Sometimes no act under my own. I got so many things that the reason no bother me. When you pala, kill us a tiny go. Cause family go call, enemy go call, I don't know who is. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo! I hope you enjoyed it. Just a little something today to get that body warmed up. Techniques you can do at work, at home, anywhere, in a chair. I'm John Lewis, and see you later. Bye.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you, John. Again, every week he's been bringing us all types of activities that we can do right from our very own home. So kudos to you, John. He will be back with us next Tuesday. Have a great rest of the week, John. All right, so Dr. Parker, are you still on? I wanted you to just sort of introduce Attorney Riley, because people are probably saying, like, why are y'all talking about legal documents and your research center?
We are talking about legal documents because they're necessary, all right? One of the reasons we have this BrainTalk Live is, you learn about Alzheimer's, you learn about related dementias, you learn about aging and what it takes to stay healthy. But part of staying healthy and reducing the stress and mental stress for your relatives, when you lose the ability or no longer have the ability to make decisions for yourself, is something that is very important. Because if we walk out of here tomorrow, if I walk out of here today and have a major head injury and car accident and I can no longer make decisions for myself, my family has to do that. Okay. And many of us, and I hate to admit this, but I'm one of the many millions of people who is in this. It's like, I'm healthy. There's nothing that's going to happen to me that's going to be wrong. But if we walk out of here today and we don't have a plan in place for how we want to be taken care of, we might not be taken care of the way we think we should be. And if we don't make adequate provisions, some unscrupulous members of our inner circle, whether they're family members or church members who've been left in charge of us, may not make the best kinds of decisions for us, or more importantly, may not make the decisions that allow us to be cared for the way we think we want to be cared for. The other thing that's important, and Attorney Riley has worked with us before, is there are things that all of us need to be doing to make sure that our financial interests are managed properly, so that our physical persons can be well taken care of when we're no longer able to do those things for ourselves. So one of the things in Alzheimer's, and I can say this as a primary care doctor, a lot of patients come to the doctor's office and it's clear that they are having difficulty managing day-to-day affairs. And as a physician, I can treat a medical illness, but I can't manage somebody's day-to-day affairs. I can't designate somebody to do that for you. And so we all have to think about that. So whether we're living with somebody who has Alzheimer's or a related neurocognitive disorder or other medical problem that prevents them from taking care of themselves, we all have to put in place a plan. We all have to have somebody else besides ourselves who has access to, let's say, our finances, our insurance things that need to go on whether we're here or not. So if I'm demented, but I still have a house and I can still stay in my house, somebody has to be available to be able to pay the bills such that I can continue to live in my house and get the care that I need. So making sure that you have a plan for your health, somebody to help carry through and follow through on those things that you think are important for your health is important. And so for that, and I know this is the South, so I'm talking to a lot of my relatives and a lot of my cousins. I got a will. Okay, just because you have a will doesn't mean that what you put in that will is going to be carried out in the way that you think it needs to be carried out. You need to have a will that tells people what to do with your jewelry, yes, and what to do with your old car, yes. But you also have a person, you have to name a person and put a person in place who can make healthcare decisions for you. Do I want to be on a ventilator? Do I not want to be on a ventilator? Do I want you to give me a feeding tube? Do I not want you to give me a feeding tube? And more importantly, as I've learned this personally, you have to designate somebody who you trust to be able to go to the bank and transact your financial affairs. And the person who takes care of your person is not necessarily the person who takes care of your financial affairs. And you need to put this document somewhere so that all your family members know. I think you should blow up a poster and put it on the side of your house so that everybody is clear about what their roles are or are not. So everybody needs a durable power of attorney for healthcare. Everybody needs a durable power of attorney for finances. It's not always your spouse. It's not always your oldest child. It can be a friend. But most importantly, you don't want to get into a crisis situation and not have a document in place and not have people do to you or for you what you don't want to have done. And it helps while you are of sound mind to verbalize, okay, this is what I don't want if this happens to me. This is what I do want. Okay, you need to have that, you have to tell them out loud so that it's heard, but you also have to write it down. And I thought that you could avoid probate court. I'm dealing with a relative's estate and you can't do that. If you got a will, that will needs to be written down someplace. It needs to be probated. It needs to go to the court so that everybody officially knows what you wrote in your will. And I'm not here to talk about that. Attorney Riley is going to talk to you about that, but she's also going to talk to you about how you can resist being taken advantage of financially and otherwise, how people stop ripping us off. So everything that somebody tells you to do because you saw it on an ad on television or you read about it or somebody sent you a text, don't click on it. Don't read it. Those are scams for older adults. So I'm going to turn things over right now to Attorney Angel Riley, who works in Dekalb County. But what she's telling you, yes, all the counties are a little different, but the basic information is the same. So we're all trying to help you keep it together. Attorney Riley.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parker. And I have enjoyed working with you and so grateful to be back again working with you. If you could allow me to share my screen.
Okay, and you should be a co-host.
Okay. Let's see if this works. Can everyone see the screen?
Looks great.
Perfect. Okay, so again, thank you so much. I want to take just a few seconds to tell you who I am and what I do now and why I'm in this space and why I was invited several years ago to work with Dr. Parker in this wonderful, wonderful journey of making sure we are taking care of ourselves and protecting ourselves. So I am the Deputy Chief now of the Crime Strategies and Community Partnerships Unit for District Attorney Sherry Boston, but I worked for many years, 7 to be exact, almost a complete decade as a felony prosecutor. And before that, about 3 years as a misdemeanor prosecutor focusing on cases of elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And so at this time, I'm going to introduce you to my boss, District Attorney Sherry Boston. She assumed the office as District Attorney in January of 2017, and she is the former DeKalb County Solicitor General. She's also a former defense attorney, and she's the first woman who was appointed as a municipal court judge for the city of Dunwoody. She's also served as an associate magistrate court judge for DeKalb County. She's a graduate of Villanova University and Emory University School of Law. So we've got that Emory connection already. And a little bit about our office mission. I'll go ahead and put these up and just quickly go through them. We want to make sure that we are protecting our citizens and that we are engaging in crime prevention measures. And that's what I oversee now, that community partnership side of the Crime Strategies House, to make sure that we're engaging in our community and making sure that we are teaching and educating about things that can protect you. We want to make sure that we are doing that in a legally and ethically sound way, and making sure that we are not doing anything to induce extra harm to a victim. We emphasize assisting our victims and preventing crime through our community education programs. And we offer peace of mind by treating everyone, the arrestee, the offender, the victim, the witnesses, everyone is treated with dignity and with respect. So our office grew by over 100 employees this year. We were gracious enough to get some funding, or the DeKalb County government was gracious enough to give us some funding, and we were able to add on some additional staff because, as you probably already heard, that over the last two and a half years, crime has increased tremendously. We stood up 2 new units this year. So instead of 14, we now have 16. We have our firearms violence prevention unit, as well as our digital forensic evidence unit. And our 10 divisions correlate to our 10 sitting superior court judges. We hear over 6,000 cases per year in the felony court. We have our victim witness assistant program, our post-certified investigators. And what that means is that all of our investigators have gone through the Peace Officer Standards Training Academy. And we have our administrative support staff and our juvenile court that handles over 4,000 cases a year. So let's transition into why we're here. Now that I've given you a brief background, I have spared you, and unfortunately for some, that may not be a good thing because some of you might like the guts and the gore and the blood, but I have spared you the details of some of the cases that we have seen. I have removed all the graphics, but I want you to know that it is important that you have your mind and your body sharp, and that you have these legal documents that Dr. Parker talked about, because when it is not in place, this is when we see the end results on the other side, when people who are predators or opportunists come out and try to get you and get your money. Usually it's about the money. I would say a good 99%, it is about the money. And that's what we call exploitation. And so when they're after the money, that's when the abuse and the neglect come. So you will never, ever, hardly ever see just exploitation unless it's one of these scams here. When it comes to abuse and neglect, it's usually tied with exploitation. So these are the ones that I know you can absolutely protect yourself from. Sweepstakes, home improvement, computer repair, grandparent, arrest, funeral, insurance. These are these people that are calling you on the phone. These are these people that are telling you that your grandchild is in another country and can't get back home. These are people who are telling you that your loved one is arrested and they need bail money. I can assure you that the only person who is going to accept bail is going to be the jail from the bail's bondman. And therefore, you don't need to be putting money or a prepaid debit card into your mailbox. So how can you protect yourself from this stuff? Hang up the phone. Just hang up the phone. The good thing about our telephone companies today, and I've even seen it on our house phones, I am one of those that still have a house phone, but especially our cell phones, it will pop up, scam likely. Don't answer it. I know you're curious. Let them leave a message. If it's that important, they will leave a message. If it's somebody you know, they will text you or call you back. Just hang up the phone. Guard your personal information, especially your Social Security number. And do not share this information with anyone that calls you on the phone. If you did not make that phone call to that particular business or agency, you don't need to be sharing your information. And don't let anyone other than a trusted friend or family member have access to your account. And here's a big one. Please check your bank statements each month. If you get them in the mail, if you can, go to receiving them online. That is the best way to protect yourself. But regardless, check them, because some banks will not reimburse for fraudulent transactions after 30 days. If you want a prize, you will not have to pay taxes on that prize before you get that prize. So when you get that phone call saying you won $25,000, but I need 10 in taxes, hang up the phone. Check with the family and friends to see if they're in jail, see if they're in another country. And with the IRS, I know they can be intimidating and they can be scary. They will never ask for you to put a prepaid debit card or cash to pay for your taxes. So please just keep that in mind and contact the IRS directly. Here's some things that you can do. Now, I always hear complaints about this National Do Not Call Registry. Here's the negative part about that. I want you to go ahead and get on the Do Not Call Registry. But if you have a business relationship with a particular business and they sold that list, or they partner with other companies and you did not opt out of that, then you're still going to get phone calls. And that's okay, because when it says scam likely, you're just gonna hang up the phone. And definitely connect with AARP's Fraud Watch Network. I go on there myself and I see all the current scams that are happening. And so when you see those current scams, even if it's not the one that you got, it will be very, very similar. These people are artful, but they also use the same playbook over and over again. And then that way you can help protect yourself. Home repair fraud. Now, I really want to talk about this one from the perspective of our office sees lots of cases, and some of them we call them quasi-criminal, because for the most part, unless there was some type of theft by deception or taking or some other type of theft that involved tricking you out of your money, it's going to be civil in nature, which is why I want you to have a contract. I want you to have that contract in writing so that you can go to court and you can argue your case based on the contract. If for some reason there's enough evidence to show some type of trickery or deceit, some type of deception, then we can make that case a criminal case. 9 times out of 10, what we cannot do is get your money back. That money is gone. We've had cases where people have just spent money up on eating out at fast food restaurants, buying inexpensive shoes, I don't know, just little petty things, not taking your money and going and buying the next latest, greatest sports car or taking some fabulous trip. They just go through the money. This is what they live off of because this is how they make their funds as opposed to going to work and making legitimate dollars. So that's the one thing we can't do. Most of the time, we can't get your money back. So the legwork that you do after the fact, after you realize you've been defrauded, and now you're calling our office and you're saying, well, I checked with the Better Business Bureau and I checked with this person, I checked online and I saw this complaint and I saw that complaint. Do that beforehand. Do your homework beforehand. And don't let anyone rush you into a decision. My parents sold their home because they felt rushed into a decision. And thankfully, because of the 3-day window on major purchases, I was able to cancel that contract. You do not need to hurry up and make a decision or else you'll lose a discount. And that's usually how they will get you. I will do pressure washing your house for $500, but if you sign the contract today, I'll do it for $200. Don't feel rushed. You might have to end up paying that extra $300, but I promise you that was probably the going rate for that job. And I will tell you another story about a roof scam that my parents went through. And the person off the street knocked on the door and said, hey, I'll repair your roof for $2,000. And that just did not sound right to me. But my dad, who's now deceased, he was just one of those individuals who was going to handle his business and handle his business his way. So I asked him, Daddy, let me make some phone calls. Let me see if $2,000 to replace the roof is the going rate. And if it's not, then I will select the person to do the roof. If it is, you can give this man who knocked on your door $2,000. When I tell you that it was $14,000 because of rotten wood. Now, would he have put the shingles on the roof for $2,000? He may have, but I promise you that's all he was going to do was lay shingle on top of shingle. He was not going to remove the old shingles. He was not going to deal with the rotten wood. So please be mindful of people that just approach you. And again, I've said, check with the Better Business Bureau. We talked a little bit about this, this concept of predators. Predators are those people that sit back and they come up with crafty schemes and plans, and they prey on people who are vulnerable. Vulnerable could be due to your mental health status, or it could be due to your age, or it could be due to just not being a very wise, cautious person, not having street smarts, as my mother would say. And then those are the opportunists. These are the people that just fall into the opportunity to make you a victim. And they're usually your family members. So you need to keep a close eye on what's going on around you. Mind, body, it all starts with the good health. We've talked about that. We saw John Lewis doing the exercise, and I wanted to exercise with him, but I didn't want to be out of breath for my presentation. But I will go back and look at the recording. It starts with your brain. That means you have to eat healthy. You have to keep your brain active. You have to stay engaged. You have to have an active lifestyle. And who likes working out? Some of you on this call may love working out. I'm not that person, but I promise you, when I work out with a friend, it goes much quicker. We can talk about all the latest gossip or what's going on in the world, and your 2-mile walk will be done before you even know it. Follow your passion. Many of you on this call may be retired. Take that passion that you had for your job into your retirement years. Do something in the community. Stay connected with your faith-based organizations. Eat healthy, and just remember, wellness is a matter of body and of mind. If you are already in the place where you will be living, or you move to a place where you will be living for the remainder of your life, make sure it's safe. Poor mobility, which can be caused by your feet, so make sure you go to a podiatrist and have your feet examined, will cause you to fall. Handrails are a must and are a necessity for everyone. I don't care what your age is. Going up and down the stairs, you need a handrail. If you have hardwood floors or linoleum or tile, make sure if you have rugs down that they are secure so that you don't slip and slide on them. Make sure you mop up water. If you're coming in from outside on a rainy day, that your floors aren't wet, especially in your bathrooms, getting in and out of the shower. You may want to consider some type of other shower, or like a walk-in shower or walk-in tub, as opposed to trying to step over into the tub. And if you're frail, consider wearing an alert, a medical alert, so that someone will know how to assist you and that you are in need of assistance. Here are the organizations to connect with. I'll leave this up for a little bit. Write down their web addresses: the Alzheimer's Association, the National Alliance on Mental Health. We've all been through it. Again, it doesn't matter your age. We are all going through and experiencing this pandemic, which is new to every last one of us, unless you were around back in 1918, 1917. So please take care of your mental health. Reach out. It is okay not to be okay, but it is not okay to not seek help. And also connect with Georgia's Aging and Disability Resource Connection. This is through the Department of Human Resources for the state of Georgia. There's the Georgia Senior Legal Hotline. Pick up the phone and call them anytime. Ask them what you need. They will get you to where you can get some assistance or some help. It's through Atlanta Legal Aid. And then also under the Department of Human Services for the state of Georgia, there's the Division of Aging Services with their Elderly Legal Assistance Program. So reach out to them. I know that many of you are probably going to be asking me for a lot of legal advice that I absolutely cannot give you, and I'll get to that slide in a minute. So definitely reach out to aging.georgia.gov or Atlanta Legal Aid for some of that information. And then stay connected with Emory. This is a wonderful program, and I am so excited and elated that it has lasted through the pandemic, and it's offering you the opportunity to be able to connect in a virtual setting as well as in person. But definitely stay connected with Dr. Parker and her team. So here's my legal disclaimer. I am a prosecutor. I am not a wills, estates, and trust attorney. I am not an elder care attorney. Therefore, I cannot give you legal advice. That would be a conflict, and that could get me disbarred. And I do not want to get disbarred and lose my license and not be able to practice law. However, if you call the State Bar of Georgia, and there's their phone number, 404-527-8700, you can get some guidance on who you can use in the state of Georgia. Other states have bar associations, and they will probably have the same type of attorney referral to get you to the help that you need. So I am simply going to explain to you 4 of several documents that you need to have, as Dr. Parker indicated, in order to try to prevent yourself from becoming a victim, because prevention is the best protection. So we talked about a last will and testament. We're going to talk about a living trust. Some people call it revocable trust, powers of attorney, and then your advanced healthcare directive, which is that medical power of attorney that Dr. Parker mentioned. So your last will and testament is that legal document. Should it be official? It should, but does it have to be? It doesn't. You can type something up on your computer, and as long as you follow the steps in the state of Georgia, then it is considered an official legal will and testament. It must be signed by you. It must be signed by 2 witnesses, and is highly, highly suggested, and I bet you can figure out why, that the witnesses that sign the will not be named heirs in your will, your final will and testament. And remember that I always say, let your will be done. Play on the word will. If you don't tell people where your money is going to go, the state of Georgia is going to tell people where your money is going to go, where your property is going to go, who's going to get that, who's going to get this. So please prepare a legal document that you declare as your last will and testament, so that you can dictate after your death where your property and where your items go, where, if you have children, if you're taking care of grandchildren, who's going to be the guardian. These are things that all need to be considered. And that's why this document is so very important. A living trust. It's another legal document. It will allow you to bypass the probate regarding transferring property, but it's very, very specific, because you still have to have your last will and testament. As Dr. Parker said, she thought she could do, working with a loved one, that she could go without having to go through probate court, and it's nearly impossible. There are people who die intestate, and that means they die without a will, and they still have to go through probate court to have that property or anything that's left of the property. If you have nothing, that may be the only way to get out of probate court, because you don't have anything and you didn't leave anything. So keep in mind that you will still need a will. This is expensive. Definitely seek out good lawyers who can talk to you about how you can place things in a living trust and keep that, whatever that thing is, outside of probate court. But you still, again, I can't reiterate enough, you still have to have your will, and it can take effect if you become incapacitated. So our will takes effect when we die. Our living trust, hence the word living, can take effect while we're still alive, but incapacitated.
Attorney Riley, can you go back to that for a minute?
Absolutely.
You know, you talked about a will and a trust. You said, does it have to be official? And you said not necessarily, but where should people keep these things? Because invariably people become incapacitated and nobody can find where these documents are. Should we get a safety deposit box? Do we have to nobody necessarily knows who the lawyer is, but where should these documents be kept? Where should copies of these documents be kept so that our family can find where they are?
Great question. And the short answer is wherever you want to keep them, but tell somebody where they are. If it's the safe deposit box at the bank, let your family know. I had to tell my mother. She wrote hers after my father passed away. And I said, okay, well, where are you keeping it? She told me exactly where it's being kept so that I can find it. And the reason you want to do this, and make sure, good point, Dr. Parker, you want to have multiple copies, because what will inevitably happen when people die is then everybody starts fussing and fighting. My dad died without a will because he had nothing and he wasn't leaving anything to anybody, but he did have some clothes that caused some sibling rivalry to fester for a moment. And thankfully we were able to just resolve that matter really quickly. But this is what you want to avoid. You want to avoid people thinking that they are entitled to something. You want to avoid people who want to have something that you didn't want them to have, or receiving something that you didn't want them to have. So have as many copies and let everybody know where those are. What we will see on the criminal side of the house is wills that just start popping up all over the place. So if you have an official will that you then do a codicil to or a change of, make sure everybody knows you did that. You can keep it on file with the clerk's office in the county in which you live. Do something so that there is not that infighting once you pass away, or some fake will showing up after you pass away. So here are the types of powers of attorney. We're only going to talk about the first four. The first one is the general one, and it's that document that you say you can act on my behalf when I'm not able to do so. General power of attorney. What we see often on this side of the house is that there's a complaint that's filed, and the law enforcement officer will go to the door and they will ask to see the incapacitated person or the person that's being victimized. And the person who answers the door says, "Oh, I've got a power of attorney." Well, that may or may not be sufficient, because a general power of attorney only applies when you are unable to take care of yourself. So if they're hiding you in the basement, but you have full faculties, and they're stealing your Social Security check and your retirement check, that is an issue. And this flapping paper saying that I have a general power of attorney is not sufficient. And thankfully, our law enforcement officers are trained and they know that. And so they can move beyond that. If they come in and you are incapacitated and everything is good, they're taking care of you in the manner that you're supposed to be taken care of, then there's no need to go further with the criminal justice system. But the point I want to reiterate is that that general power of attorney doesn't allow an agent to act on your behalf unless you are unable to act on your own behalf. You can choose that person, choose wisely. Make sure that this person is going to be trusted and can manage your affairs in the way that you want to have those affairs managed in the way that you want to be taken care of should you become incapacitated. The general power of attorney, it gives this, we talked about that. It must have went backwards. The special or limited power of attorney. This sets what power the agent can have. So this is specific. This is while I'm away in Iraq fighting a war, then you can pay my mortgage, my utilities, my car note. But when I get back on September 30th, 2022, that power ceased to exist. That is the special power of attorney. Now we're talking about the durable or springing, means it springs forward power of attorney. This gives broad power to an agent to handle all your needs in your best interest. Remember, it has to be in your best interest if you should become incapacitated or mentally incompetent. You can specify that it will not go into effect until this condition happens. So it will not go in effect unless I get hit by a car and I'm not able to speak or make decisions for myself. And who determines capacity? And this is where Dr. Parker's team and judges and courts get involved and lawyers, and it gets really ugly, which is why we want you to have these documents, because physicians or licensed psychologists will then get to determine your mental capacity. An attorney, a judge, an appropriate government official may get to decide, or the person that you authorized may get to decide if you're incapacitated. And we see it all the time. We see people who are responsible for loved ones in an incapacitated state. That loved one passes away. Another person comes up and says, "Hey, they stole my loved one's money, and I really was the one who could determine capacity." And then they go into the bank account and they clear out the bank account. And now we're trying to figure out, number one, is it a civil or criminal case? But number two, who is the defendant? Who is the offender? Yes, Dr. Parker.
On that slide, when it says who determines capacity, a physician or licensed psychologist, an attorney, a judge, appropriate government official, or the person you authorized. One of the things that I do order for people who need to have a cognitive assessment is a neuropsych examination or testing. That's an objective black and white summary of psychiatric psychological tests. That's an objective measurement of how well somebody functions or doesn't function, and in terms of interpreting information. It's important to have that kind of objective black and white document in place, or have that done when you create a will or something. I'm always wary of people who change wills and change things in the middle of the stream. So getting a neuropsychologic exam, part of what's generally done when we conduct research, we determine whether somebody has the ability to participate in research or not, is an important thing to have completed when or around the time you completed a will. You have to have somebody to certify that you were in your right mind at the time. And somebody who, your physician can do that. A licensed psychologist can do that as well. But frequently we're starting to get this testing when people are starting to have cognitive difficulties, and the ones who are likely to be taking advantage of you are the ones who don't want you to be tested. They don't want you to be tested because they don't want people to determine that you don't have the ability to make the right decisions. And as long as nobody else knows that you are confused, they can run amok.
Agreed, Dr. Parker. And that is exactly what we see. And I think that's a great suggestion. I think I'm going to do that for my mom. She recently at Emory had eye surgery. And before going into the surgery, we had to do the advanced healthcare directive. And they gave her the cognitive test to make sure she could make up her mind that she was of sound mind and able to agree to what she wanted to happen to her if the surgery didn't go well. I'm so proud to say Emory did a fabulous job. So then the final document that we're going to talk about is this Advanced Healthcare Directive. And this is this legal document that you get to say, this is what I want to happen. It's exactly what I was talking about with my mother. If something doesn't go right, or if I end up in a vegetative or incapacitated state, you need to decide this. This is not something that you want to put on your loved one to decide. My dad passed away from cancer, and thankfully he was of sound mind and was able to make the decision. As hard as it was, I certainly did not want to make that decision. And so he was able to make that decision for himself. And that way, when it was time for him to decide what treatments he wanted to have, because you can decide that you don't want hydration, you can decide that you don't want to be intubated, you can decide that you don't want pain management. Whatever your will is, it's your will, and that's your decision. And so I did not have to deal with that. If my dad, although he did accept pain management, but had he decided not to accept pain management, if he had decided to, I'm just going to transition the way I'm supposed to transition, and I could not sit there and watch him in pain, then there was no way I could go against his wishes, because he had his advanced healthcare directive and the doctors were going to follow that. You need to appoint an agent who will carry out this. And we're going to talk about what kind of agent you need to be thinking about choosing. And you can pre-select a guardian if you think potentially down the road that let's say you don't want to ever be removed from life support, then you will have to have a guardian. And therefore, at that point, you can pre-select your guardian, because the case may end up in court and the judge may have to assign a guardian to you. A guardian is the one that takes control of your bodily affairs, and the financial affairs is handled by a different type of agent. And therefore, you have the conservator who handles the financial affairs, and you have the guardian that handles your bodily affairs, so your daily living activities and things like that. And so you can pre-select your guardian if you feel like you're that person that does not want to come off life support. You want every medical intervention that can possibly assist you. You must be of sound mind, as Dr. Parker said. When you do this advanced healthcare directive, you must be 18 years of age or older, or you can be an emancipated minor, which means, what are you saying about your grandkids, your children under 18? You're going to have to make that decision for them. When my daughter was under 18, I asked her, what did she want to do? And I asked her to write it down so that I would be forced to abide by her wishes. You must sign the document, or in my dad's case, he was legally blind, so he expressly directed me to sign the document. You must have 2 witnesses who are also of sound mind, and they must be 18 years of age or older. And the witnesses, you have to make sure you see that the witnesses sign the document, but the witnesses don't need to see each other sign, and they don't need to see you sign. So it's not like that will where everybody's in there signing at the same time. This one, it can be passed around. The witnesses cannot, again, for obvious reasons, be standing in line to inherit property from you or inherit some item from you. They cannot have anything to do with your health care, and they cannot be a beneficiary of your estate. And only one witness, so like a Dr. Parker, she would be, if she is the one that's providing for your care, she can be the only one witness from the healthcare facility that can sign your advanced healthcare directive. Now, here's what we need to think. As Dr. Parker said, it can't always be the child or the oldest child. You have to think about that person who is going to do what you ask them to do. An agent who is absolutely going to act on your behalf. If you know that that person is going to make contradictory decisions or decisions that are inconsistent with what you have requested, if my dad knew that I was going to go in there and say, no, leave him on life support, he doesn't get to transition, I love him, I want him to be with me forever, then I should not be the person who is the witness to that directive and handling that directive, and or being that agent to handle that directive and making sure that his wishes are going forward. You need to think about that too. Who is the child that is going to stand up no matter what their personal wishes are, and say, this is what mama wanted, and this is what we're going to do. That's the person that you need to make your agent. All right, this is my contact information, and I think we have a few minutes for some questions.
You got a whole bunch of questions. Okay. One question, I think this is an important one. If you are married, can you choose someone other than your house to be your spouse, the person you're married to be your durable power of attorney for healthcare and or finance? How does that work?
You absolutely can. And if you know your spouse is not the one, you absolutely should choose someone else.
Okay, so and we've talked about this before. In the state of Georgia, if you haven't written down a will, who is the person Georgia recognizes as the person who can make the decision? So I'm married to my husband, but I'm incapacitated and my husband is too. Can my oldest child do that?
Yep, it's going to go down the line. If there is no will, it's going to go to the next natural heir.
So what about decision making? Let's just say a couple was married to somebody else and one person is a widower, and that widower has decided to get remarried to a new wife. And he's got a new wife, but he's got adult children who aren't necessarily on board with the new wife. If the widower who's now remarried, gets sick and goes into the hospital, who's the decision maker? His children, his adult children, or his new wife?
His new wife.
You got that, people? Your new wife, your new spouse takes precedent over your older adult children. Say that again.
It's the spouse. It's the new person. And there's also, let's say the spouse dies, the father dies, and there's something called a year's support in Georgia for the wife. And that's going to end up being a probated issue. Is the wife entitled under Georgia law? The wife is entitled up to a year's support. And then what happens if there's no will and there's property, house that needs to be divided up or not divided up? Those are all things you're going to need a lawyer for. So make sure daddy has a will.
Okay. And last question, and there's some of the similar questions. You can look through some of these, but one of these, it's like, how do you get an older family member to make these decisions? Now, in other programs you've been on, you're like, well, where are the property deeds and things like that? And there are several questions in there about that. Like if I've got a power of attorney set up in the state of Georgia, but I'm moving my parents to the state of Alabama, does what go fly in Alabama, what went on in Georgia, and vice versa?
No. New state, you got to start the process over. It shouldn't be difficult because at that point you'll have some legitimacy of the documents, but new state, new laws.
Okay, so let's see, there's another one in here, and this is an important point here. It's like, what is a trust company? Let's just say I'm not married and I don't have any children, I don't have a close friend. Who do I get to manage my affairs? Who is that? Who is the person? In one note, I said, well, you can appoint an attorney or a pastor. Who do families, what does somebody do? I'm not married. I have no children. I have no close relatives. Who carries out things for me? How do I find that person?
That person is a conservator and in the probate court, and I will provide information. I should have had that readily available to Georgia's probate court, but DeKalb County's probate court. But any probate court in the county, in your county in which you live, should have a conservator list, and you can select a conservator, or one can be selected for you.
And is a conservator a lawyer?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. They may be a CPA, or they may be a lawyer. They do have to go through a vetting process. And that's why it's important. And I can't, again, stress enough, choose your agent. Even if you're in that situation, choose someone. You can probably call the State Bar of Georgia, talk to some elder care lawyers, wills, trust and estates lawyers, and they will be vetted individuals who can help walk you through that process of who to select.
Okay, thank you. That's a really good one. And this one comes from Sabrina Goodson, a social worker, and this is a good one. Please review who is considered next of kin. Now, I just used the husband who remarried somebody and has adult children, but what is the next of kin? Who exactly is considered a next of kin?
Somebody that is married or blood relative. And I can't go through the familial line because it could skip around depending on how many times somebody's been married. It could skip around depending on if it's an adult child or young child, but it is going to be blood or married relative.
Okay, so if I am married to my spouse at the time, let's just say I haven't lived with my spouse for years and years and years, but I'm still married to this person, that's the next of kin, correct? Even though they are estranged.
As long as they're adult children. So yes, do not hang on to those separations. Please go ahead and do it legally, get the divorce.
Okay, because that next of kin is the legally married spouse. That's the most important thing. Legally married spouse is the first next of kin. Secondarily are the older children.
Right, it goes downhill after that. So children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren.
Okay, now there is an interesting question in the chat that says, can a conservator cover both a mother and an adult child? A lot of times a parent is caring for a child, let's say, who's an adult with Down syndrome. And if the mother goes down, the mother is responsible for that child with Down syndrome. What should a family member do? That person with Downs, for example, or other mental disability has been living with their parent, and the parent is the one who's been controlling things for them and is listed as next of kin, etc. How should we get a conservator for both an ailing parent and a disabled adult child?
Probate court. That's going to be your first line of action, is going to probate court, and you can file for conservatorship or file for guardianship paperwork.
Okay. Mr. Graves asked, what is the pay for conservators?
Good question. I have no idea.
But a conservator is somebody that's appointed by the court.
Yes. And I do know they get paid out of the estate if the person has passed away, or they get paid out of some financial package that, let's take the example with the young man with Down syndrome. If he's receiving monies from the state, there is a payment plan. There is a way for them to get paid, but I'm not sure how much they get paid.
Okay, there are a number of questions in here, and this is the last one, and this is important. Durable power of attorney for finance and durable power of attorney for healthcare only goes into effect when somebody is incapacitated. This person wants to know, what about putting adult children on checking accounts, savings accounts, and deeds?
Oh, that is a great question. Thank you. I should have addressed that. Awesome question. Do it with cautionary instructions. Please know that joint bank accounts are, the funds in those accounts belong to everybody's name that's on the account. So if it's my name and my spouse's name on the account, those funds in that account belong to both of us equally. That means I could be putting in 90% of the paycheck and he could be putting in 10% of the paycheck and take out 80% of the funds. That is not illegal. So if you want to add your adult child, what I would suggest is doing a power of attorney. So you add that adult child as your POA. That way, whatever money is in that bank account must be spent on your behalf.
Okay, there's a question about a conservator, a woman named Dorothy Arnold Cox said that she was a conservator for Dekalb County in 2014, and the payment for a conservator was 2.5% for income and expenses. What does that mean? That's the rate of what a conservator gets paid. So if my account is worth $100,000, they get 2,500.
I guess she's saying they get 2.5% of that account in order to cover their fees and expenses of having to manage the account.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my interpretation of that. If I'm not correct, please, Ms. Conservator, correct me on that.
Okay. 2.5% of income and expenses is what the conservator gets paid. Okay.
I think, yeah.
Okay.
She's saying it's an additional 2.5% of the incapacitated person's income and expenses.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. You've kind of taken us over the limit. People, if you have special needs in our chat, we have put in the number for the Georgia Bar. We've also, where this particular webinar will also be available on our YouTube channel next week. Ms. Danzy will be loading that. If you want to contact the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office, that number is 404-371-2561. 404-371-2561. And there was another one that you had in here. There was another number you gave us. I think it was for the Georgia Bar. But I think the most important part is available. And if you live in a different state and you're moving your relative from state to state, you have to change those documents in accordance with the laws of the state that they're moving to, right?
Correct.
All right. I don't have anything else. Thank you so much, Ms. Riley. And for the greater than 260 some of us who listened, again, this program will be on YouTube next week, and you'll be able to copy down anything you need to copy down. Thank you.